Welcome to Sports Time with Chris. I'm your host, Chris, and today I have a bunch of stuff to talk about, and it's going to be kind of a mishmash of various topics. So yeah, if you're into sports, then this is the podcast for you. I'll be talking about the conference championship games that just took place last Sunday and my reaction to those games. I'll be talking about the 49ers signing Robert Saleh back as their defensive coordinator, and then I'll be talking about the Utah Hockey Club and the latest developments on them, including the final round of voting for their team name. So let's get right into it. I'm kind of going off the cuff here. Normally I have a bunch of stuff written down. I have an outline of what I want to talk about, but today I did not have time to do any of that. So I'm just kind of going to go off the cuff here and try to figure out what I want to say. So we'll start with the Eagles versus Commanders, and boy, oh boy. I mean, I picked the Eagles to win that game, but man, I was not expecting them to destroy the Commanders the way that they did. It was just, I mean, like I said in my preview of that game, with the way the Commanders play offense, high tempo, no huddle, and the way the Eagles play offense, where they want to run the ball, they possess the ball, they control it, run down the clock. It was just a bad matchup for the Commanders once they started to go down, because then Philly could run the ball, and then they could throw short little passes that are, basically they're extensions of the run game to Dallas Goedert multiple times, and that, I mean, that's why they put up as many points as they did. Their defense was also number one in the NFL this year, and they proved it against this good offense in the Commanders. And one thing is, if the Eagles played any other team, I don't think it would have been necessarily this kind of outcome. But these divisional games, I've said this ad nauseum, divisional games are weird. And I know this was a divisional game in the playoffs, but these teams have played each other twice this season already. So, they're already familiar with each other, and things can get a little bit weird. And it's not uncommon to see a team go out and completely dominate another team in their conference, or in their division, the way the Eagles did. So Saquon basically did whatever he wanted. Jalen Hurts looked solid running the ball, and throwing the ball. Yeah, he looked decent. He had a couple of deep throws, but most of them were short. And that's really the key to success in the NFL. And a lot of people put so much on quarterbacks being able to fling the ball downfield and make big plays and big time throws. And that stuff is all great. But so many teams that you see that have success in the playoffs and win Super Bowls are those teams that control the ball with short little passes. The Chiefs have done it for years. Tom Brady did it during his time. Now, the difference between, this kind of dink and dunk offense that these teams play and what separates a good quarterback from a great quarterback is occasionally they're able to make the big throw, when they need to, or if they want to have an explosive, they're able to do that. And Jalen Hurts did that a few times in this game, but we'll see if he's able to keep it up against the Chiefs. And while we're talking about the Chiefs, they also found a way to once again win a football game and beat Josh Allen in the playoffs. This game, it was an exciting game. Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, it's kind of a rivalry, except Patrick Mahomes has had the upper hand pretty much every time. So yeah, it was another game where it's insane. Like, people talk about how many weapons quarterbacks have, and there are a lot of people, and I kind of agree with this, where they're saying, Jalen Hurts has all these weapons, and AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon, Goddard, and it is true. But this band of wide receivers and weapons that Patrick Mahomes has is really underrated. These are guys that have been high-level players at some point in their career. We're talking about Juju Smith-Schuster, DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown. The new guy, Xavier Worthy, is a speed demon. Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. Of course, Kelsey. But they have a lot of weapons on that offense. And a lot of those guys were injured or just didn't play the season. That's probably a large part of the reason for why this offense wasn't clicking the way that they usually do and why it took so long. And we saw them spreading the ball out in this game. It seemed like they were really trying to get everyone utilized. And I feel bad for Josh Allen, man. He gave that last throw a chance. Just came up a little, tough play for Kincaid to make and couldn't quite get there. So yeah, once again, it's the Chiefs and Eagles in the Super Bowl, which means I'll be making the same thing for that Super Bowl party that I made a few years ago, only this time. So I'll be making the Stroud's cinnamon rolls, most likely, just because those are good. Those are easy. They're a treat. For the Super Bowl, you need a good mix of savory and sweet treats. And, that's just one of the sweet treats I'm planning on bringing. So, and then for the Eagles this time around, instead of doing cheesesteak sliders, my plan is to do cheesesteak like taquitos. So it'll basically be, taquitos with cheesesteak ingredients inside of them and some sort of Cheese Whiz dipping sauce, I think will be good. I don't know if I'll use Cheese Whiz or if I'll make my own cheese sauce. I haven't decided that yet, but I've got a week to figure that out. So actually, that's honestly the most disappointing thing about the Super Bowl for me. It's not fun to see the Chiefs back in it. It's not fun to see the Eagles back in it, but that's out of my control. And so, the fact that I'm having to make foods that I've already made before is kind of lame. So that's how much I'll complain about that game. And stay tuned for next episode where I will be previewing the Super Bowl, giving my predictions and takes for this one. I'll be a little bit more detailed than I have been during the playoffs. Usually I focus on the 49ers throughout the NFL season. And so when it comes to them, I know them inside and out. I know a lot of the players that most casual fans won't know. If you're a Cowboys fan, you're not going to know who Evan Anderson is until, I feel like most people probably don't know who that is outside of the Niners. They might not know, about Jacob Cowling or some of the rookie guys that the Niners have in their squad, but that's besides the point. Stay tuned for that coming up. And I'm planning on watching the game. Might as well watch it. I don't know what else we're going to do. So let's get into the 49ers news. It was broken I think last week that Robert Saleh would be returning as the 49ers defensive coordinator. And I've had a little bit of time to think about this. And I'm just not, at first, I still don't know entirely how I feel about Robert Saleh. He is a really, really good defensive coordinator. Actually, you know what? I do know how I feel about him. And it's this. When this was first announced, I was a little disappointed. Not because I don't like Robert Saleh. Like I said, he's a heck of a defensive coordinator. Even with the Jets, his defense was always atop the league. But I was mostly concerned that this was a sign that Kyle Shanahan just isn't willing to change. That he wants a guy to run his defense. He wants them to run the defense they've been running for 6-7 years, however long it's been, and that Robert Saleh was just a comfortable choice. And especially when you have guys like Dennis Allen out there, and of course Aaron Glenn got a head coaching position, so that's with Steve Wilkes, by the way. I'm interested to see how that goes. I personally thought they should have stuck with Steve Wilkes last season, but like I said, I was a little concerned that this was just a sign that the Niners aren't willing to change. They're stuck in their ways, and in a sense, that is slightly true. They still have this same base defense, but what Robert Saleh, at least the reports that I've seen, have said, he wants to be more creative when it comes to blitzing and simulated pressure. It's something that the Chiefs are insane at. And they did it on that last play where Josh Allen had two guys running freely at him. Steve Spagnuolo is just an absolute genius when it comes to breaking an offense's rules, when it comes to pass blocking especially. He knows how to bring guys and disguise things so that offensive linemen get confused. And if you watch that last play for the Chiefs game, you could see the left guard. It's almost like they knew, like they were prepared, the Bills were prepared for what was going to happen. However, the Chiefs do such a good job of disguising it that by the time they realize what's happening, it's too late. But you'll see the left guard. He knows right away, like, oh, my guy's bailing. They're sending pressure from the complete opposite side. And he tries to, it looks like he's pulling, like he's run blocking. It almost looks like that. But I think he realized what exactly was going on. And he tried to get over and it was just too late. And so that's really what I want to see from Robert Saleh. If he's going to be the defensive coordinator to run the 49ers system, then I want to see it improved. I don't want to see just the same 49ers defense that we've seen the last 7 years. I want to see an evolution. I want to see disguises and unique pressure packages and just not showing exactly what you're going to do. I mean, last year, the defense felt so vanilla. And whenever they were blitzing or faking a blitz, it was always the same look. It'd have two linebackers lined up here in the A and B gap, or in both A gaps, and then one of them would blitz, the other would drop back, or they would both drop back, or it was just really predictable. And so I want to see the impact Saleh has there. Hopefully they can bring in some defensive linemen, some run stuffing defensive linemen, some really big guys, because it seems like you really need that nowadays to be successful. I mean, the Chiefs have Chris Jones, the Eagles have Jalen Carter, and I mean, I don't know. The defensive line play was bad last year, and that's why the Niners struggled so much in the running game. And even in the passing game, it seemed like the defensive line never got any pressure. So, yeah, that's really it. If you are going to run your own scheme, you might as well bring a guy like Saleh, who has shown year after year that his defenses are always legit. And that makes me think that he's going to come in here and help improve on the defense and not just run the same thing that they've been running, because they need to do that. And one thing that I also like is that one of the conditions that he had was that he wants to have a voice when it comes to which players they draft or add in free agency. I think that's really big. And another pro to re-signing Saleh is he's been a head coach in the NFL now. Now, yeah, his organization didn't have a lot of success. Quite frankly, I don't think he deserved to be fired. I think it's just not good. I mean, the Jets are a bad franchise. Even after he left, Jeff Ulbrich couldn't fix anything. And whenever you bring Aaron Rodgers into a situation, it's probably not going to be very good. So yeah, anyway, Saleh has that head coach experience now. And so he knows what Shanahan's going through. He can help Shanahan. He might even be named the assistant head coach, which is really good. And that also brings me to this next point where if for some reason the 49ers fail the next season or the year after that, and Shanahan's on the hot seat, if they're in a situation where they can let Shanahan go, Saleh, if he stays around, could potentially be a name that we look at as a head coach candidate for the 49ers. That would be, I think, a pretty good transition if that were to happen, but he has that head coach experience, and the 49ers aren't a poverty franchise like the New York Jets. Just poorly run, mismanaged. New York, I mean, in general, has got to be a tough place to play because of the media there. And so, yeah, I think the more I think about this signing, the more I like it. And ultimately, it'll be a good thing for this 49ers defense. And I expect them to make significant improvement this season. I don't know if they'll be a top 5 defense or anything like that, but I think they'll be, top 10 and take a step in the right direction. The Niners also filled their special teams coordinator position. They signed Brant Boyer, who was with the New York Jets for 9 seasons. And I really like this move because the Jets, obviously Robert Saleh knows him because they worked together for a few years, but this guy has been through, I think, 4 coaching changes during his time with New York. And even through all those coaching changes, he has remained there and been their special teams guy. So I think that speaks to him. I think it shows that he is someone who knows what he's doing. He's going to be able to improve what the Niners do on special teams, obviously. And I'm excited to see what he does. I mean, he was also a player for a few seasons in the NFL. And the Niners have quite a few of those guys on their coaching staff. They have what's his name? The Seahawks, KJ Wright. KJ Wright, I think, is their linebackers coach, and someone that I have seen mentioned as a potential future defensive coordinator prospect, someone that can learn under Robert Saleh and then take his principles and use them for his own as he moves up in the coaching tree. And the Niners seem to really like previous players on their coaching staff. I know Frank Gore was a part of scouting department, I believe. So they really value those guys, which is awesome. And yeah, I think the players will relate to that as well. And we've seen what kind of impact that has with, there are certain guys like Dan Campbell played in the NFL, Kevin O'Connell. Players have a natural respect for their coaches if they played in the league. And I think that is a big deal. So ultimately a good move for the 49ers. And I'm so far this offseason, I think they've taken steps in the right direction. I'm glad that I didn't instantly react to the Robert Saleh news. Otherwise, I would have said it's probably a bad move. But the more I've had time to think about it and do some research and not just, respond to it right away, I do like the move. So So steps in the right direction. Don't think I'll talk about anything else that comes up for the 49ers for a little bit. Of course, there are going to be some things that break, like Brock Purdy contract, I'm sure. I've heard talks of George Kittle extension, remaking him the highest paid tight end in the NFL. He absolutely deserves it. I know this isn't the best team move, the best team building move, because the NFL is a business. But personally, as a fan, I'd be okay if George Kittle was given a lifetime contract. He has been just a fantastic, not only player, but person for this team. And he's one of the leaders, does things the right way. So stay tuned for that news and any other news that comes up. I mean, the Niners have the draft in a few months, and if there is any breaking news or anything that I feel like I should talk about regarding them, then I'll go on here and record some stuff. But I would say if you're here for 49ers content, it's probably going to slow down quite a bit, but I will hop on whenever there is something to talk about with regards to the Niners. So with that being said, let's get into Utah sports. Starting with the Utah Jazz. They suck intentionally. And I have no interest in talking about them, I have no interest in anything regarding them. So that's it for the Utah Jazz. Moving on to the Utah Hockey Club. This week, they had a little bit of controversy, which I added to via Twitter. They announced the finalists for the team name vote, and it came down to the Utah Hockey Club, the Utah Mammoth, and the Utah Wasatch. Man, when I saw these team names, I was just like, really? Like, these are our options? First of all, okay, hockey club is fine. It's grown on me a little bit. I don't mind it that much. I mean, it's a name. And ultimately, if they went with that, or if that's what is decided, then I'm not going to be mad about it. But it does seem like a temporary name, honestly. Utah Mammoth. I really, 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 really like the idea of Utah having this mammoth as their logo, as the mascot. It is a very cool, natural hockey, Utah, tough sport vibe. Like it works very, very well, in my opinion. The issue that I have is that everyone wants the name to be singular, the Utah Mammoth. And while I agree that sounds better than Utah Mammoths, it is not correct. It is not one collective mammoth. There are multiple mammoths, right? Like I just, it doesn't make sense to me why everyone is so obsessed with this non-plural version of this word. I mean, if it were Utah Mammoths, then yeah, I would absolutely consider voting for that one. It doesn't sound as good when it's plural. I agree with that, but it would drive me a little crazy if it was a singular version of that word. And it seems like that's the most popular one at this point, and we'll see. We'll see how things go once we get there, but the Utah Wasatch, it was very poorly received, and I looked up the meaning of Wasatch, and I learned about actually, here it is. It's the Utah, and this is from Google. Here we go. Yeah, this is according to Wikipedia, actually. Wasatch in Ute means mountain pass or low pass over high range. Okay, that's promising. According to Native American linguist specialist William Bright, the mountains were named for a Shoshone leader who was named with the Shoshone term Wasatsi, meaning blue heron. So what was explained to Utah hockey fans was that Yeti Coolers was not willing to they weren't willing to reach an agreement regarding the Utah Yeti. And so they came up with this idea that they can be called the Utah Wasatch, and essentially create a mythological creature from the word Wasatch. Problem with that is there's already a name, there's already a creature associated with that name, which is the blue heron. So luckily, that is no longer an option. To the credit of the Utah Hockey Club and Ryan Smith, they changed the name to, I believe, the next popular one in the voting. I think they did it the right way. They explained that Yeti was one of the most popular options, but because they couldn't work out a deal with Yeti Coolers, it no longer can be an option, which is too bad. I did like the Utah Yetis. I thought that would have been pretty cool, but the next name based on popular vote that they decided to release instead of Wasatch was the Utah Outlaws. Now, this name to me is the best one. It's plural and it's cool. I think there's a lot of things you can do with Utah Outlaws. I mean, I've seen so many logos and concepts put out for that. I think there's a way you can incorporate copper. You can even incorporate copper with the Mammoth if you really wanted to. I mean, you don't have to. I know that Ryan Smith and the Utah Hockey Club want to generally stick with a color palette that they have now, which doesn't, to me, it's not, that palette definitely works with the Mammoth idea, but it doesn't work quite as well with Outlaws, but they can make it work. So yeah, it's tough, honestly. And I think you have to vote in person. Like if you have to go to a game to vote, which is, it's interesting. It's kind of lame. If tickets were more affordable, then everyone would be able to go and have a say, but those ticket prices are ridiculous, man. And even with the Smiths, they're doing a promotion with Smiths where if you buy a certain amount of groceries, you can purchase this many tickets for a really cheap price. Whenever I try to do that, there are no tickets available. So yeah, we'll see if... I'm hoping I can get out to a game, potentially vote. And I would honestly vote for Utah Mammoths if it were the plural version of the word. It drives me so crazy that it's Utah Mammoth. I don't know if anyone else feels that way or if I'm overreacting to that. That's just how I feel. So if I were to go and vote today, I would go vote for Outlaws, the Utah Outlaws. It sounds good. There are so many things you can do with that. You can have, I'm sure, a fun mascot. You could even have you can do a lot with it, in my opinion. And you could incorporate Red Dead Redemption somehow. Everyone loves Red Dead Redemption. But yeah, anyway, that's the update for them. They also just had, I think Logan Cooley, they announced, is going to be out indefinitely with the lower body injury. Not entirely sure what that means, but that's too bad. I've tried to catch as many hockey games as I can. There aren't a lot that show up on ESPN, and for some reason, I have an antenna for my TV, but for some reason it doesn't connect to the Utah 16, I believe is the channel. It doesn't connect to channel 16, so that's too bad, and I don't want to pay for another subscription to a streaming app. Otherwise, I would do that to watch the games. But yeah, I hope I can make it out to one of these games and use that Smith's deal to find some tickets and make it out to one. But with that being said, that is everything I have today. Actually, it's not. As I'm sitting here editing this video or this podcast, I was scrolling through Twitter and this tweet came up. This person at Clubber Time on Twitter described that they have been a designer, marketer, and brander for 20 plus years, and they're a big fan of the name Mammoth, and they would much prefer that over Outlaws because they feel like Mammoth is a lot more unique. There's more marketing opportunities. There's more. Is just overall their favorite name. And as a professional brander, I asked this person why they prefer the singular version of the name Mammoth versus Mammoths, and they actually gave me a really good explanation. And essentially what they're saying is that brands are rarely literal. There's so much more abstractivity in brands than people are okay with when it's presented to them, but they are concerned over when they're in position of making those decisions. And so vibes actually works quite a bit when it comes to brands. And a lot of times brands don't make sense. They're not actually literal. They go on to say that, Mammoth is a double entendre because you can use it as an adjective. That is a mammoth undertaking. And if you make mammoths plural, then it kind of loses that, and it only explains the skaters on the ice and loses the fun adjective usage. And I kind of that was I was half reading the tweet, but this person may have just changed my whole thought process on the name Mammoth. And the more I've been thinking about it, the more I've been liking it. It's starting to make sense because I'm so used to sports. Sports where when you look at the NFL, every single team has a plural name, right? I don't think there's a single one that doesn't, besides a Washington football team for a while didn't. Now they're the Commanders. And so being a fan of football most of my life, you have so many teams with, usually an animal. And when you think of an animal, unless it's a mythical creature, unless it's a one-of-one creature, you're going to say there are multiple of them when it comes to sports, typically. However, in hockey, there are quite a few clubs that have teams that are singular versions of their word, and it makes a lot of sense for them too. The Avalanche, it makes a lot more sense to be called the Avalanche versus the Avalanches. It just does. The Seattle Kraken, there's only one, and this is where the mythological creature part of it comes into play. There's only one Kraken, right? At least that's it's like an urban legend. It's a myth. There's only one of them, and that's why I think a lot of people also liked Yeti, because there's only one Yeti. When you're taking on, this is probably why Yeti Coolers didn't want to work with them on this. But anyway, it's starting to make a lot of sense why people like Mammoth. It's not necessarily you're taking on a bunch of mammoths. It's not like you're taking on the Bengals or the Bucks, Penguins, because mammoth can be used as an adjective. And also mammoths are huge. Well, they were giant creatures, right? Like there's a reason why it's used as an adjective. That is a mammoth undertaking. It is a huge task that you are about to embark on. So the more I've been thinking about this, the more I like it. It's like when, of course, these are professional hockey players. They're not going to look at this like they're going to war, right? It's their profession. It's not a huge literal thing, right? Like they're not actually coming to fight mammoths, but it's more intimidating. The more I think about it, it's more intimidating to say, we're going to Utah to take on the Utah Mammoth. It's almost like it is a collective. It is not only the team, it's the fans. It's like you're taking on one giant thing. And that's why I think Seattle Kraken is such a cool name. I liked that name when I first started learning about hockey. I was like, oh, Seattle Kraken, that's pretty cool. It's like you're going to take on the Seattle Kraken. It makes sense because it's like you're trying to complete this big task. And with them specifically, it's a mythological creature. But with the mammoth, it's like you're taking on one giant mammoth. And it's not necessarily a mythological creature, right? But it is a giant creature. It is a big thing that you are undertaking. So yeah, I think I've switched my position. I was literally done editing this podcast, and then this person said these things, and I started thinking about it more, and it makes a lot of sense now. And so I'm going to resend my comments I literally just made a few minutes ago on the podcast. And quite frankly, I think out of all the options, mammoth, like I said, I think there are so many fun visuals that you can create with mammoths. There are so many fun marketing things you can do with. I'm not a professional marketer or brander. No, there's a reason why there are professionals. I'm not very good at it, obviously. This person kind of called me out a little bit. They said, when you're making that decision, you kind of start to take things a little bit more literally. But when you are presented with a brand, it doesn't have to make sense for you to like it. But when you're in a position to, decide yourself, you're going to choose the one that logically makes the most sense. That's what I've been doing. I've been thinking about this in a very literal way. But now I kind of dig Utah Mammoth. And like I said, there are so many marketing. I'm just like visualizing t-shirts. I'm visualizing the mascot, which I assume would be a mammoth. I'm visualizing, you can do so many unique things with this. And quite frankly, I'm starting to hope that this is the actual team name, because it is unique as well. Like I said, most sports teams have a plural noun, like their team is represented by an animal, and usually it's multiple. It's the Blue Jays, it's the 49ers, it's the Chiefs. It's unique. And I'm hoping for people to vote for Mammoth. I don't know why it took so long for me to sort of see this, but thanks to @ClubberTime for this is the reason why this person has been in marketing and branding and design for 20 plus years. Obviously they know what they're doing. So they sold me on this idea, and I've switched my position. Utah Mammoth. I like it. Anyway, that is now all that I have for today. So stay tuned for some videos coming to the channel really soon. I will be releasing my videos regarding the Super Bowl foods. I'll be remaking the Stroud cinnamon rolls this year, and then the Philly cheesesteak taquitos I'll be doing in honor of Philadelphia playing in the Super Bowl. I'm not sure if I'm going to do just shorts or short clip videos for those. I don't think I'm going to do long clips. We'll see. I'm still trying to figure out when exactly I'm going to, I don't know. We're still trying to figure out some logistical things, because I have a busy weekend that weekend. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And then, like I said earlier, sports are going to be slowing down, especially after the Super Bowl. I mean, the hockey club will still be going on, but soon season 3 of Story Time with Chris will be coming. And I'm planning on going back to storytelling, having guests on the podcast. This won't be just about sports. This will be about real life. It'll be about fatherhood, parenting, all sorts of topics that I'm going to be talking about. So if that interests you, stay tuned for that. I have a lot of stuff that's cooking up, and I'm currently working on the season 3 artwork and all of that stuff. So anyway, thank you if you've been a listener for this season for Sports Time with Chris. Sports Time with Chris is its own podcast under my sort of umbrella of things, and I appreciate every one of you that have taken the time to listen to me talk about sports, especially football. I've unfortunately, I've had my fair share of bad takes this season, but I've also had some good takes, I think. And I just try to be honest with what I'm saying, and I'm sure you guys appreciate that. And stay tuned for next week as I preview the Super Bowl and share my final predictions for this NFL season. Thank you once again. This has been Sports Time with Chris.